Hey, before we dive in, a quick heads up. This series is called Validating the BPD Life, and that's exactly what it's here to do. Validate the experience of living with borderline personality disorder, hopefully making you feel a little less alone. That said, if you don't have BPD, there's still value here, especially if you've loved or currently love someone who does. But fair warning, we'll be talking about some heavy stuff. Self-harm, self-destructive behavior, hospitalizations, and a lot of emotional pain. You might feel grief, guilt, anger, rage, shame, or confusion while watching. And if you do, that makes sense. Don't judge yourself for feeling anything. Don't shame yourself for being triggered. Emotions show up for a reason, even if you don't know that reason right away. If it helps, try saying, "It makes sense I'd feel this way after everything I've been through." And if you've ever been hospitalized or felt like you were losing your mind, I wrote a book about my own experience at a psych ward, and you can grab it at the link right here. Or here. To be honest, I'm not sure where I'm going to put it, so I'm just going to say grab it. It supports the work I do and might help you feel a little less lonely on this journey. All right, without further delay and nothing more to say, buckle up, Buttercup. It is time to walk the middle path towards common humanity and a wise mind. Therapy ruptures felt devastating, but not in the typical way I've heard others describe it. For me, the fear of rejection wasn't just about abandonment. It was the overwhelming terror of being seen as a broken monster. I was so terrified of being perceived as unworthy that I would mold myself into whatever I thought my therapist wanted me to be. I fawned hard. The problem with this? I wasn't being myself. I wasn't letting myself feel or speak the truth of who I was. Instead of being honest about my fears, my struggles, my pain, I felt compelled to twist myself into something more acceptable, more fixable. In doing this, I was creating an internal rupture that was far worse than anything my therapist could have done. I was abandoning myself in the name of trying to fit in, trying to be what I thought would be palatable. What I didn't realize then, what DBT has taught me now, is that fawning didn't make me safer. It just further disconnected me from the very thing I was seeking, acceptance of my true self. Instead of finding validation from the therapist, I was wasting their time by presenting a false self. And in doing so, I was also denying myself the healing I needed. Wise Mind has helped me see that in therapy and in life, the only way forward is through authenticity. When I present myself fully, fears of rejection can be met with the reality that I am still worthy, even if I don't fit into a particular mold. Rejection sensitivity, for me, wasn't about the obvious signs of rejection. I was too good at masking for anyone to see that. Instead, it was about my internal dialogue, the constant fear that no matter what I did, I wasn't enough. This fear would amplify every time I thought I was being judged, misunderstood, or perceived as too much or too little. BPD made this particularly difficult because it often felt like I was always teetering on the edge of being rejected, not just in therapy, but everywhere. But what I didn't see at the time was how much I was self-rejecting by trying to contort myself into someone who didn't feel like me. The pain of not being accepted for who I truly was became so overwhelming that it felt like I was losing touch with the very essence of myself. Through DBT, I've learned that rejection sensitivity doesn't just come from others. It's also deeply linked to how I reject myself. Wise Mind helps me in these moments because it brings me back to the truth. My worth isn't based on how others perceive me or whether I meet an arbitrary expectation. I am worthy of love and acceptance even when I make mistakes, even when I fail. Distress tolerance is my anchor when these painful feelings of being too much rise. I can sit with the discomfort and remind myself that I don't need to change to be worthy. The idea of reattachment was confusing for me. I wasn't just trying to reconnect with my therapist or anyone else after a rupture. I was trying to reconnect with myself. After constantly fawning, morphing into whatever I thought would make me acceptable, I was left feeling like a stranger to myself. How could I trust anyone if I didn't trust me? How could I let someone else in if I couldn't even let myself be seen? For me, reattachment didn't feel like a seamless process. It felt like rebuilding trust with myself, and then slowly extending that trust to others. Radical acceptance was huge here, acknowledging that the process of reattachment wasn't something I could rush. It was about acknowledging the parts of me that I feared, the parts I thought weren't worthy of love, and accepting them instead of pushing them away. There were many times when I felt overwhelmed by the idea of reconnecting with others, let alone with my therapist. And with Wise Mind, I could tap into the balance between emotional and logical thinking now, and remember that the fear doesn't have to control me. I could still reestablish connection even when it felt risky. In therapy, the biggest challenge for me wasn't necessarily the therapists themselves. The rupture came from within me, from the intense fear that I wasn't enough, that I was a broken monster, and that no one could love or accept me if they truly knew who I was. That led to fawning, hiding my real self, and creating a cycle of emotional and internal rupturing. Thankfully, DBT has allowed me to reconnect with myself in a way that I had never thought was possible. Wise Mind teaches me to embrace my authentic self, even in the face of rejection. Distress tolerance teaches me how to sit with uncomfortable emotions without reacting impulsively or running away from the pain. And radical acceptance allows me to accept the things I can't change, like the reality that relationships will sometimes feel rocky, and that doesn't mean they are doomed. Reattachment is a gradual process, and it's one that has brought me closer to the goal of not just staying alive, but thriving. I've learned that when I allow myself to truly show up in therapy, when I stop hiding, and when I choose to be authentically me, I can form deeper connections, whether that's with my therapist or anyone else. The journey from fawning to being my true self isn't easy, and it's worth it. And with DBT, I'm more willing than ever to keep walking that path, even when the fear and vulnerability feel overwhelming. And if I can walk it, there's a very good chance you can too.